Hi everybody, and welcome to our look at the Comic-Con Museum's latest gallery show, Sense of Wonder, the Art of WonderCon Anaheim. I'm Gary Sassaman, the museum's curatorial director, and I'll be your host for this in-depth look at this exhibition. The gallery opened on Wednesday, February 19th, with a reception that included our WonderCon 2020 cover artist, Jen Bartel, along with close to 200 attendees. Our interview with Jen is available on the museum's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and we'll give you info on how to watch it at the end of this video. It's a fascinating look at both Jen's career and her work on this year's cover. Sense of Wonder had only a few opening days before the stay-at-home protocols due to the COVID-19 virus went into effect in California. We're going to give you a rare behind-the-scenes look at this exhibit using both video from the museum and scans of the actual art, featuring, in many cases, thumbnail and concept sketches, pencils, inks, and color art, plus the completed covers with type. We're starting with a little scene setter, video of art on the walls and doors outside the gallery at the Comic-Con Museum. This art shows the history of WonderCon Program Book covers from the second show in 1988, straight through to this year's postponed event. We'll dive into each of these covers individually, so don't worry if they go by too quickly. But first I'd like to give you a little WonderCon history. One of the first things you see as you enter the gallery and follow the chronological path of the artwork is this introductory piece of art, which includes all the covers that aren't featured individually in the exhibit, basically from 1988 through 2009. In 2010, Comic-Con started commissioning original exclusive art for the WonderCon Program Book covers, and original art from those covers from the last decade are what make up the bulk of this exhibition. WonderCon started in the Bay Area, Oakland to be exact, as a kind of trade show / convention hybrid by a group of comic retailers and fans. The group included John Barrett, a pioneer retailer who co-founded the first chain of comic book stores in the United States, called Comics and Comics, with an X, with fellow pioneers Bud Plant and Robert Bierbaum. They helped organize the first comic conventions in the Bay Area in 1973 and 1974 with BerkeleyCon, held on the University of California, Berkeley campus. In 1987, Barrett started the Wonderful World of Comics convention, which became WonderCon in 1989, its third year. At that point, the group behind the convention included Barrett, Mike Friedrich, a comics writer who also published Starreach, the first indie comic in 1974, and was also an agent for comic writers and artists, Joe Field, who in 1988 opened his own store, Flying Colors and Other Cool Stuff in Concord, California, and who also is the creator of Free Comic Book Day, and Bay Area retailers Rory Root and Bob Borden, plus Capital City Distribution branch manager Brian Eulenbrock. By their 15th show in 2001, Friedrich and Field were the two remaining partners, and they contacted Comic-Con about taking over the show. 2002 was Comic-Con's first year, and the event remained in the Oakland Convention Center for that year. In 2003, Comic-Con moved WonderCon to Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco, where it remained through 2011. WonderCon quickly became an integral member of the Comic-Con family of conventions, becoming the little sister to the big show, Comic-Con in San Diego, and carving out its own niche as one of the country's most popular comics and pop culture events. In 2012, construction at the Moscone Center caused the event to move to the Anaheim Convention Center in Southern California, and it's stayed there ever since, except for one year, 2016, in Los Angeles, when construction at the Anaheim Center forced WonderCon to find an alternative venue. Sadly, this year's event, scheduled for Easter weekend, April 10th through 12th at the Anaheim Convention Center, has been postponed. So let's look at some covers. We're going to start with the first set of covers from 1988 through 2001, before Comic-Con took over the show, continue with Comic-Con's first decade of covers from 2002 through 2009, and then get to the heart of the exhibit with our commissioned cover art from 2010 through 2020. Along the way, hopefully, you'll learn some fun facts about the covers and the artists behind them, information that you can use to dazzle your fellow comics fans the next time you see them. Here is the cover to the second Wonderful World of Comics event, held in 1988, by legendary comics creator Will Eisner. As you can see, it features his signature creation, the Spirit, along with Commissioner Dolan in fog-bound San Francisco Bay, with the Golden Gate Bridge looming in the background. Eisner has an interesting connection to WonderCon. He was interviewed at the show by Michael Chabon, a comics fan and author who was researching his book, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Eisner was present at the birth of the comics industry, and the characters of Cavalier and Clay are comics creators. The book went on to win the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2001, and Chabon went on to cement his pop culture credentials as one of the showrunners for the new Star Trek series, Picard. But wait, where's the first cover? Well, there was no program book for the first year, just some kind of small brochure, but no one seems to have a copy. So if you have one or find one, let us know. There'll be contact info at the end of this presentation. 1989's cover started kind of a tradition by the previous management of WonderCon of mixing characters from different companies. This cover, by Arthur Adams, celebrates the 50th anniversaries of Batman, the Human Torch, and Submariner, who all debuted in 1939. WonderCon 4 in 1990 featured a rare Captain America drawing by a relatively new artist named Jim Lee. Just 3 years after making a name for himself at Marvel on titles like Alpha Flight, Punisher War Journal, and X-Men, and 2 years shy of co-creating Image Comics, Lee was on the cusp of one of his greater successes, the adjectiveless X-Men #1 in 1991, one of the top-selling comic books of all time. 1991 and WonderCon 5's cover was by artist Michael William Kaluta and featured the character he was most associated with over his long comics career, the Shadow. Starting with DC Comics in 1973 and later with Dark Horse in the 1990s, Kaluta's detailed art style lent itself to the retro 1930s pulp magazine world of the character. Paul Chadwick's Concrete, one of the signature characters of the early years of Dark Horse Comics, graced the cover of 1992's WonderCon 6 program book. Aliens transplanted his brain into a 1,200-pound rock-coated body, and Concrete's adventures were rooted in the real world, including all the problems that will come with such an abrupt transformation for a normal person. By 1993, Neil Gaiman's Sandman was a major success for DC Comics, so much so that they launched Vertigo, a separate imprint for similar comics. This WonderCon 7 cover from 1993 is the first of 3 jam covers on the early program books, featuring Sandman and Death by artists Kelly Jones and Mike Dringenberg. A jam cover is a cover that features multiple artists doing multiple drawings on one piece of art. WonderCon 8 in 1994 featured another jam cover, this time around the new Dark Horse Comics imprint Legend. The cover features 3 of the line's new books: Monkey Man and O'Brien by Arthur Adams, Nocturnals by Dan Brereton, and Hellboy by Mike Mignola. Both Adams and Brereton drew the cover, with Adams doing double duty on his characters and Mignola's Hellboy. Groove the Wanderer finally visited WonderCon in 1995 in this cover for the show's 9th year. Sergio Aragone's Addled Barbarian, aided and abetted by writer Mark Evanier, literally tore up the place, at least on this cover. Sergio and Evanier have been guests at both WonderCon and Comic-Con for many years, with Evanier involved with countless programs and Sergio a fixture in the exhibit halls of both shows. 1996 marked the 10th WonderCon event, and Mike Mignola celebrated the anniversary with this cover featuring his own creation, Hellboy, alongside Batman, Concrete, The Spirit, and Bone by Jeff Smith. Another cover featuring various characters from different publishers, all rendered in that wonderful Mignola style. WonderCon 11 in 1997 was the third and final jam cover under the previous management of the show, this time featuring some of the hot books of the time, including Alex Ross and Kingdom Come's Superman, Robin and Batgirl from Dan Brereton's Thrill Killer, and a John Estes illustrated Batman. 1998's cover for WonderCon 12 featured art by Charles Vess for his collaboration with Neil Gaiman, Stardust. An illustrated story edition was published by DC Vertigo and reprinted in a collected edition which is still available. Stardust was made into a movie in 2007 starring Claire Danes, Robert De Niro, and Michelle Pfeiffer. Animation and comics artist and co-creator of Batman the Animated Series, Bruce Timm runs the pop culture gamut with this 1999 WonderCon 13 cover featuring Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Spider-Man, Sailor Moon, Star Trek Spock, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all fan favorites in the late 1990s and beyond. Artist P. Craig Russell brought his adaptation of Richard Wagner's operatic cycle, The Ring of the Nibelung, to the 2000 cover of WonderCon 14's program book. Russell's Art Nouveau style won him Eisner Awards in 2001 for Best Limited Series and Best Penciler Inker. Although, we're pretty sure the Golden Gate Bridge does not appear in any production of Wagner's operas. WonderCon 15, the final show by the original management team, featured the art of Frank Cho on the cover, including some of the characters from his own Liberty Meadows comic strip, alongside DC's Supergirl. Once again, the Golden Gate Bridge made an appearance on the cover, even though WonderCon was still being held across the Bay Bridge in Oakland. In 2001, WonderCon became part of the Comic-Con family of conventions, which at that point included Comic-Con International San Diego and APE, the Alternative Press Expo, which was also held in the Bay Area. The first WonderCon under Comic-Con management was held in 2002 at the Oakland Convention Center, but it quickly became apparent that there wasn't enough space for programming, and Comic-Con started looking for another Bay Area venue, eventually settling on the Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco. Green Arrow was having a moment in 2002. DC Comics had just relaunched the book with Kevin Smith writing it, and with painted covers by Matt Wagner. This particular cover wasn't used for the series. Smith's first story arc, called Quiver, ran through 2001. The title was taken over by author Brad Meltzer after Smith, then by Judd Winnick, and has pretty much remained in print ever since, except for right now, under various writer-artist teams. 2003 and WonderCon 17's cover was by Jill Thompson, based on her graphic novel Death at Death's Door, which was published by DC Vertigo in 2003. Starring one of the breakout characters from Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, this particular story of Death was written and drawn by Thompson in manga style. Gaiman's depiction of Death as a pleasant, friendly, down-to-earth young woman who dresses casually in goth-style clothing made her one of the most popular characters in the Sandman universe. Thompson's charming and manga-influenced art style only added to that appeal. WonderCon 18 in 2004 featured our first ever Wonder Woman cover appearance, based on Darwin Cook's immensely popular DC, The New Frontier miniseries. Considered by many to be Cook's magnum opus in comics, New Frontier bridges the gap between the Golden Age of comics and the Silver Age, roughly from 1945 until 1960, and the coming of the Justice League of America. This cover originally appeared on one of the back covers of the original New Frontier series, but makes a dynamic front cover too. It's worth mentioning that these covers from 2001 through 2005 were designed by Scott Saavedra, who worked with editor Dan Votto of SLG on producing the WonderCon book during those years. This cover for WonderCon 19 in 2005 is a rare Jim Lee-Alex Ross collaboration that was originally used as one of the covers for DC's Infinite Crisis series, written by Jeff Johns. It features the death of one of the DC superheroes. Who, you ask? Sorry, no spoiler alerts here. In 2005, Infinite Crisis was one of the big series of the year. 2006's cover was designed by yours truly to celebrate the 20th anniversary of WonderCon. It was also Comic-Con's 5th year running the show. We wanted to celebrate the history of the show, so the cover, obviously, includes all the previous covers from the first 19 years, with the 20th cover being this one in 2006. I believe this was the first time all the covers were seen together in one image. We were still doing black and white books at this time, so we'd have to wait until 2011 and WonderCon's 25th anniversary to talk about the covers individually inside the program book for that year, with a rundown of each cover and the artist. Don't worry if you can't find that book anywhere, we're getting much more info right here. WonderCon moved into its third decade with show number 21 in 2007, and this cover featuring Brian K. Vaughan and Tony Harris's popular Wildstorm series, Ex Machina. The series took place in an alternate reality where only one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center was destroyed on 9/11, and series character Mitchell Hundred was that world's only superhero. He was also the mayor of New York City. Both Vaughan and Harris were WonderCon 2007 guests, along with Vaughan's other artistic partner at the time, Pia Guerra, who was drawing Y the Last Man during the same period. This is one of my personal favorite covers, even though the artwork came from another source. In 2008, WonderCon 22 hosted the world premiere of Warner Animation's movie adaptation of Darwyn Cooke's DC, The New Frontier. Cooke and other members of the production team were in attendance. This painted cover was from promotional art for the DVD release of the film. I love Cooke's retro feel to this painting and the dynamic figure work, and having Green Lantern's foot break out of the box at the bottom gave the cover a little more depth. 2009 was the year of Watchmen, Zack Snyder's big screen adaptation of Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' legendary comic series. Snyder and members of the cast were at WonderCon 23 for a panel discussion, and the movie was shown in the nearby theater 1 week before it was released. This cover was from a new edition of the graphic novel published by DC and drawn by Dave Gibbons. Now we get into the actual heart of the Sense of Wonder exhibition, the original art. In 2009, Comic-Con once again went back to commissioning original art for its souvenir book covers. We had been doing it for our APE, Alternative Press Expo, covers since 2004. 2010 marks the first original cover commissioned exclusively for the WonderCon Program Books, under Comic-Con's management. What you'll see in this portion of the tour is the cover in its final printed form with text, additional associated original pieces of art, plus video from the actual gallery exhibition. Incidentally, most of our cover artists from 2010 onward were also present at WonderCon as guests, so attendees and fans could get their program books signed by the artist. Our first commission cover features DC's Flash and Green Lantern by Ethan Van Sciver. Back then, both the artist and writer Geoff Johns were DC's go-to team in reviving the Silver Age Flash, Barry Allen, and Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Both were featured in separate miniseries titled Rebirth, Green Lantern in 2005 and Flash in 2009 to 2010. So this cover is basically a big welcome back to Barry Allen, once again teaming up with his pal, Hal. Here you can see Van Sciver's original inked art piece for the cover on the left, and on the right is the final color art by Brian and Christy Miller of Hi-Fi Color for Comics. The cover was also turned into a memorable official t-shirt by Graffiti Designs for WonderCon 2010, starting a yearly tradition of t-shirts based on our program book covers. In 2011 was WonderCon's 25th anniversary, celebrating a quarter century of continuous events showcasing comics and pop culture. Here's Frank Quitely's cover of Batman crashing through a big old red 25 to celebrate the occasion. Over the last decade with our commissioned covers, DC has been very good about letting us play in their sandbox with some of the most recognizable comic characters in the world. It's been great working with all the artists too, and seeing their own personal interpretations of these iconic heroes. Frank's original cover art is deceptively simple. You can see the blue line pencils under his somewhat delicate line work of Batman, with the 25 very subtle in the background. Frank let his color work on this cover do most of the heavy lifting as it is, fleshing out and adding a dynamic look to the character. There were two major reboots in 2012. WonderCon moved to the Anaheim Convention Center for the first time, starting an almost decade-long series of events in Southern California. And DC Comics restarted their entire line with new #1 issues and creative teams on all their books. It was called DC, The New 52. Ryan Sook, currently the artist on DC's Legion of Superheroes, illustrated this cover for the 26th WonderCon, which included DC's Trinity characters, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, in their New 52 costumes. Here are Ryan's original concept sketch on the left and a composite of his pencils on the right. You can see some of his notes on the sketch, fleshing out his ideas for the background concepts for each hero. The pencil art on the right shows 3 separate renderings of the characters, which have been composited together. Ryan illustrated all 3 characters separately. Batman also had his cape rendered on a separate piece of art, which is not shown here. Here are the inked versions of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Here's the original color art of the three environments for each hero: Superman's Krypton, Batman's Gotham City, and Wonder Woman's Themyscira. These were all added in behind each hero in the final art. Ryan explained his thought process behind this. Quote, "Superman is not Superman without Krypton as much as Diana is not a princess unless she is a princess of somewhere. And really, who is Batman without Gotham City? I wanted to include the elements because to me, they speak as much to the iconic nature of the characters as their costumes." Unquote. Incidentally, in 2012, we started documenting the cover process in an article called Cover Story, which appeared in the WonderCon Program Books each year. We're going to create a PDF collecting all those articles, so look at the end of this presentation for some more info on that. Ryan also did the coloring for this cover, and here's his final color work, with all three superheroes together, along with the background images. And here's something you won't see in the actual exhibition, an add-on sequence showing the final cover composition. First, the background, a rich dark gray that really makes the art pop off of it. Next is Superman in full color, followed by Wonder Woman, and then Batman swooping down from above. And finally, the heroes' environments behind each of them. And let's face it, no piece of art is complete until the artist signs it, so here's Ryan's signature, just right of Wonder Woman. In 2013 was the 75th anniversary of the very first superhero, Superman. First published in Action Comics #1 in 1938 and created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, what better way to celebrate this momentous occasion than with a cover by Jim Lee showcasing the Man of Steel in an iconic moment, changing from Clark Kent to Superman. 2013 also marked the year Superman returned to the big screen with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel motion picture, which was released that summer. Here's Jim Lee's initial pencil drawing, which captures the power and strength of Superman. Jim worked with his frequent collaborator Scott Williams on inks. There's a kind of shorthand communication that occurs when artists work together for so many years, as Jim and Scott have done, and that also includes their frequent colorist collaborator Alex Sinclair, who did the final color art for this amazing cover. All three work together as a kind of hive mind team to produce incredible work and images such as this one, each seemingly knowing what the others had intended. We liked this image so much we had it blown up as a floor-to-ceiling mural at the back of the gallery and a photo opportunity for visitors. It's also an impressive sight when you walk into the gallery and see this giant, almost 9-foot tall Superman looming over the exhibit. The Amazon Princess returned to our program book cover for the 28th WonderCon in 2014. One of the most popular relaunches of DC's New 52 initiative was Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chang's Wonder Woman. The team brought new aspects to Diana's backstory and worked on the book for over 3 years. The first thing the cover artist Cliff Chang sent us was this color sketch. As you can see, the final cover is basically all there. Most of the time when we work with artists on our covers, the first thing we see is a quick thumbnail pencil sketch. But when Cliff was interviewed for 2014's cover story in the WonderCon Program Book, he said, quote, "I find that color is such a huge part of what's attractive about a cover. I almost always send a color comp as a sketch because it communicates so much more effectively what the idea is going to be." Unquote. As you can see, Cliff's pencils are incredibly tight. In fact, they could probably be scanned to use as the final art for coloring. His inks aren't much different than his pencils, but his drawing style is very bold and graphic, and he leaves a lot of room to add to the finished art with his color work. As Cliff said, quote, "Inking for me is purely spontaneous, because you spent all this time penciling, and penciling is really the heavy lifting. You're very detail-oriented, and inking is the reward for all that hard work, where you're just kind of able to sit back and react to a piece as you're inking it." Unquote. Incidentally, Cliff also designed a logo for this year's cover, which is based on his design for the Wonder Woman New 52 ongoing series. At his suggestion, we asked DC to use something similar to the Wonder Woman cover logo. Cliff's vibrant colors on this piece and the stark black background really make Wonder Woman jump out of the cover. With minimal background elements, just the stars, and text, plus the complementary teal color of the logo, this art also made for one of our most popular t-shirts, once again produced by Graffiti Designs. Incidentally, DC used this art for the cover of the Wonder Woman Omnibus, collecting the complete Azzarello and Chang series a few years after it was first published as the WonderCon cover in 2014. I would sing the Batman TV theme here and substitute Batgirl for Batman, but trust me, no one wants to hear me sing. Ever. Instead, I would tell you that in late 2014, DC's Batgirl title had a kind of reboot when writer-artist Cameron Stewart, writer Brendan Fletcher, and newcomer artist Barbara Babs Tarr took over with issue number 35. Stewart and Tarr's redesign of the character's costume took the comics world by storm and introduced a whole new costume and location for the popular character. And the art of the superhero costume took on a whole new aspect: fashion. We asked Babs the artist to draw Babs the superhero, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl's secret identity, for the cover of our WonderCon Anaheim program book for 2015, the 29th year of the show. Babs, the artist, not the superhero, submitted 4 thumbnail sketches using Cliff Chang's type treatment from the year before as a template. Babs' favorite was number 1, but everyone at Comic-Con liked number 2, so we went with that, and thankfully Babs let us. Babs took thumbnail number 2 and did a pencil rough that had a much more detailed city background. As Babs said in our cover story feature in the 2015 program book, quote, "In my heart I knew I wanted it to be more graphic, so I simplified it for the final. Babs normally works digitally, and we threw her a bit of a curve when we asked for an original, but she rose to the occasion. Babs dropped the city and added some bats and felt it was very, quote, Batman the animated series, one of my favorite incarnations of Batgirl, unquote. Babs' ink simplified the character a bit, giving it a clean graphic look, and left lots of room for color work in the final version. But in coloring the piece, Babs made a bit of a discovery. As we showed you earlier, the new Batgirl costume in the comics was purple with yellow accents, belt, gloves, boots, and cape. But as Babs told us for cover story, quote, "The color palette was a total happy accident. I made her cowl shine hot pink and I kinda loved it and just let it influence the colors in the rest of the piece. I just wanted it to feel fresh, different, and fun. Plus, you can never go wrong with pink," unquote. Babs did add back in a building for Batgirl to jump off of, and we just wanted to include a close-up to show the texture that she added along with her signature. We played off her different color scheme for the costume in the type we added to complete the cover, using the hot pink and orange along with a little bit of a light blue to finish it all off. And this also became another memorable t-shirt, one that we still see worn a lot at WonderCon each year. The Anaheim Convention Center was under construction in 2015 through 2016 as work began on a new building, Anaheim North. Because of that, WonderCon once again had to go looking for a new, although temporary, home. WonderCon 2016, the 30th anniversary of the event, moved up the road a bit to the Los Angeles Convention Center for a March 25th through 27th show that just happened to coincide with the opening weekend of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Artist Jason Fabok created this cover for the program book based on the characters of the movie. Here's Jason's initial concept sketch in very rough form. Jason works digitally, and this blue line sketch just sets out the overall design and placement of characters. Since we had permission to do a cover based on the movie, Jason decided to do a movie poster-like illustration. Next came Jason's detailed sketch, still in blue line, but really fleshing out the characters and adding details like the Batmobile plus the city backgrounds. About the movie poster style, Jason said, quote, The movie poster layout allows you to get some big images of characters on the page, mixed with some smaller full-body images, Wonder Woman, and some action scenes, Batman fighting Superman plus the Batmobile. Quote, I also thought it would be neat to have Gotham and Metropolis behind each character, showing the divide between our heroes. In the end, I feel the image turned out like I first imagined it, and with Brad Anderson's brilliant colors, it really came to life. Unquote. Jason's precise and detailed style of art was perfect for this particular cover. Heck, any cover, where we were doing a direct tie-in to the movie. And oh yeah, those colors. There's a moment with each cover when it arrives in an email where it's pretty much the moment of truth. I love Jason's final inked piece, but I didn't see what was coming from Brad Anderson, who Jason personally picked to color this cover. I just about cried when I opened it. As beautiful as Jason's art was, Brad made it absolutely sing with his color work on it. We not only had a cover, we had a movie poster. WonderCon returned to Anaheim in 2017, and Michael Cho did the cover for this 31st year of the event. Michael had done an amazing job on the 2015 Comic-Con souvenir book cover, celebrating the 75th anniversary of Will Eisner's The Spirit, and we were glad to be working with him again. The idea for this year's cover was to take the CW DC Universe shows and show the characters in their original comic book costumes, circa late 1950s, early 1960s. Most of the CW shows had been to WonderCon over the years with panel appearances featuring cast and crew members. So we took Green Arrow, Black Canary, Flash, Supergirl, Martian Manhunter from Supergirl, and Rip Hunter from DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and let Michael loose. This is his first rough sketch for the cover. And this is basically his pencils. Michael's preliminary work is sometimes so complete and polished, it could be published as the final cover. This piece shows everyone in their final place, plus some tonal values for depth and to show how it would ultimately be colored. It also includes the cover type, which was changed a bit for the final version. I love that Rip Hunter time sphere. It adds a real funky charm to the piece, even though the character looked totally different in the Legends TV series. Michael normally works in limited color palettes, so basically what you have here is blue, green, and red. The tan background is another example of a muted color that makes the art pop, and I love how Mike used the background color to also be the skin tone of everyone involved, or, in the case of Martian Manhunter, the highlight on his green face. Incidentally, Michael Cho was supposed to be a guest at WonderCon Anaheim 2020, and we've done an interview with him that will appear soon, if it's not already up, on the WonderCon at Home page on our website at www.comic-con.org/WCA/WonderCon Home. "2018 was another Superman anniversary, this time a double one. It was Superman's 80th and Action Comics number 1000. We asked writer-artist Dan Jurgens to draw the cover for WonderCon number 32. Jergens had been associated with the character for over 25 years and was just wrapping up a long run of stories during the Rebirth era. He teamed up with inker Norm Rapland and colorist Alex Sinclair for this amazing cover that showcases the Man of Steel's commitment to truth, justice, and the American way. Dan submitted 3 different cover sketches. This first one includes a heroic Superman flying towards the viewer, with various Action and Superman covers embedded inside a giant 1000 for Action Comics number 1000. Cover sketch number 2 revisited the classic Superman flag pose that has been featured on various covers over the decades, and of course, in the opening sequence of the Adventures of Superman TV series in the 1950s, starring George Reeves. It also included Superman's iconic S shield from his costume in the background. Dan's third cover sketch included another dynamic shot of Superman flying, once again over the world-famous S shield, with numerous characters from the Super Universe embedded in the background. But the all-out favorite in the Comic-Con offices was Dan's flag piece. In cover story, in the 2018 WonderCon Anaheim Program Book, Dan said, quote, "There's something about Superman with the American flag that feels very iconic and appropriate for commemorating 80 years of Superman. It just feels right." Unquote. Dan's frequent collaborator, Norm Rapman handled the inking on this cover, adding a glossy sheen to Dan's pencil art. Alex Sinclair colored the piece, adding a starry sunset to the background and making the big S shield behind Superman into a gold-hued metallic-looking piece, which reflected the colors of the sunset. Here's the cover close-up and a view of the complete art, minus cover type, so you can see the full extent of Alex's vibrant coloring. There's one more extra special element to this cover: Todd Klein's Superman logo type recreation for WonderCon. From the beginning, we wanted to make this an all-Superman event cover, and what better way to cap it off than with the traditional Superman logo font. Here's the full cover with all text, including a special Action Comics number 1000 logo that DC created for the occasion. But let's look at that logo up close. Todd Klein has won more Eisner Awards than anyone else for his artistry and lettering. He's also an historian of the almost lost art of comic book lettering. In the 2018 edition of Cover Story, Todd recounted a short history of the Superman logo and showcased the 1940s first logo professionally designed and hand-lettered by Ira Schnapp, based off the original design by Superman co-creator Joe Shuster. This logo was updated by the Milton Glaser Studio in 1983. Todd first penciled the WonderCon Anaheim logo in the classic Superman style, with the telescope top which gives it such incredible depth and brand recognition. He then inked that drawing and scanned it for color, using the classic Superman red and yellow color scheme. Understandably, DC zealously guards the usage of this logo font, since over the years it's become, as Todd said, quote, one of the most recognizable and loved logos of any kind around the world, unquote. We were allowed a special one-time permission to utilize the Superman logo in this way to help celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Man of Steel and the 1000th issue of Action Comics. If 2018 was Superman's 80th anniversary, that must mean 2019 was Batman's 80th, right? Created in 1939 by Bob Kane with Bill Finger, the Caped Crusader was also celebrating Detective Comics number 1000 that year, and we turned to veteran comics artist Lee Weeks to capture the moment for us. Lee had recently turned in 2 star turns on Batman along with writer Tom King: the story arc Cold Days featuring Mr. Freeze in Batman's regular title, and, believe it or not, Batman Elmer Fudd, which was one of the titles that won the Eisner Award for Best Writer for Tom King. The DC Universe characters were crossing over with the WB animation characters in a series of memorable team-ups published in 2019. Lee turned in 4 preliminary sketches. Number 1 was this evocative Creature of the Night shot featuring Batman caught in the spotlight with his shadow looming behind him. Sketch number 2 featured the Dark Knight in either a pre-fight or post-fight pose, depending on your point of view. I suppose it could also be a Batman, "Come at me, bro," pose. Sketch number 3 showed Batman in a kind of about to flee moment, when he's talking to Commissioner Gordon and then just suddenly disappears. And sketch number 4 is a classic Batman stance, ready for action. We loved all 4 sketches by Lee, so this was a bit of a tough decision, but ultimately, we went with the first sketch out of the gate. As Lee said about our choice in Cover Story, quote, "I prefer different details in each of the sketches, but the one that was actually chosen for the cover has a bit more depth, detail, and a fuller sense of the Batman mystique with the shadowy backdrop. I would say it was my favorite, but I'd have been happy to draw any of the others," unquote. This is Lee's toned original art. And here's the color version. Lee also colored this cover, utilizing a very simple color palette of basically gray and yellow. We're going to zoom in here a little to show Lee's art a bit better. Lee is another one of those artists whose style boils down to the essence of the image, showcasing all the essential lines of any given drawing to tell the story. His art includes dynamic figure work with a very bold and graphic design style, which is particularly effective on covers. Here's the final cover layout once again with type, which also made for a stunning official t-shirt for 2019. And finally, the cover that wasn't, 2020's Wonder Woman by Jen Bartel. This incredibly beautiful illustration captures all the power, majesty, and glory of comics' favorite female character, one who has withstood the test of time since her debut in late 1941. As mentioned at the top of this presentation, Jen was our special guest at the Sense of Wonder Gallery opening on February 19th at the Comic-Con Museum. Jen submitted 3 different sketches, all of which were cover-worthy, to say the least. You'll notice each cover sketch has its own type treatment. Jen revealed that her idea of type is more minimalist, but ultimately we asked her to make WonderCon a bit more prominent, and she came back with the stunning lasso effect that includes the name of the show. Jen's second sketch is a powerful portrait of Wonder Woman, which was a close runner-up to our ultimate choice. As you can imagine, it was a difficult decision to pick just one, and we loved all 3 of them, including this one with a kind of earthy, Alphonse Mucha, Art Nouveau inspiration. All 3 of these sketches would make amazing covers, t-shirts, and even posters, but we went with Jen's first sketch. When we asked for a different type treatment for WonderCon, something larger for the show's name, she came back with this color sketch, which just hit the whole thing out of the ballpark and onto an entirely different level. This sketch shows the color lightly indicated. The final piece reveals the fully rendered and gloriously lit figure of Wonder Woman, which also lights up the sky a bit behind her. This art shows the lasso in all its glory, going the full width of the art from side to side. Ultimately, for the final cover, it would be cropped in and the curves of the lasso would bleed off the side. Jen works primarily digitally, but she was nice enough to do a version of this art as an original piece that we framed for the exhibition. It surprised us with its thoughtful detail and the addition of the lasso rendered in gold marker. We were planning the traditional cover story feature for the 2020 program book, and we asked Jen what her feelings were about the character. Quote, "Wonder Woman to me represents hope. My favorite thing about her is that there's simply no room for cynicism in her worldview, that she's always able to find the good in people, and that she uses her power to protect those who are the most vulnerable. As a comic artist, I think of Diana sort of how actors think of classic roles, I suppose. We've seen many different renditions of her over the years, and they are all loyal to who she is as a character, but each of us brings a slightly different personal touch when we draw her. Mine has been to always try to give her the strength and solid structure that is often reserved exclusively for male characters." Unquote. I called this the cover that wasn't at the top of our look at 2020, but that's a bit of a fib. The good news is, we do have plans to use this art for our WonderCon Anaheim 2021 cover. This cover is just too good to go unseen. As many of you know, this year's event was canceled, but we hope to return to the Anaheim Convention Center next year on March 26th to 28th, just in time to celebrate Wonder Woman's 80th anniversary. We hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Sense of Wonder, the Art of WonderCon Anaheim. We sincerely wish you could see this exhibit up close. Seeing original comic art is a uniquely personal experience for some. It's been said that some of Jack Kirby's pages, if you are able to handle them in person, still contain a hint of cigar smoke due to the presence of the King's ever-present stogie. Well, there was no smoky smell in this exhibition, but being able to see these pages up close, examine them at length, and explore the creative process from concept to completion is just a small part of what the Comic-Con Museum hopes to offer once we're open. Our commitment to comics and comic art as an art form and as an educational experience will be a major part of our plans for the museum. Remember that Jen Bartel interview we mentioned at the top of this presentation? If you'd like to view it, please go to youtube.com and search Comic-Con Museum to find our channel. Look for the Sense of Wonder video in the thumbnails, and while you're there, check out our other videos, including our Will Eisner Week presentations and the Art of Shag, and follow us for more videos to come. We mentioned earlier that part of our WonderCon Anaheim program books each year is a feature titled Cover Story, which delves into the creation of each year's cover. We started these in 2012 with Ryan Sook's DC New 52 cover and continued it through 2019. We prepared a downloadable PDF of all those features, most of which are 2-page spreads. You can find that PDF and download it on our website at the rather complicated URL you see on the screen right now, and look for the entry marked Cover Story PDF. Pause the screen to write it down, please. If you like this presentation, please email us at museumops@comic-con.org and tell us. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you liked or didn't like, and share your ideas for future exhibitions and online presentations. One of our many goals is to take the museum worldwide with regular online events such as this one. Visit us at www.comic-con.org/museum or follow us on social media at Comic-Con Museum on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for watching, and for all of us at Comic-Con and the Comic-Con Museum, we hope to see you soon.